Consumers know Energy Star is a certification of energy efficiency for their fridge or television. But the program, managed by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, has a widespread but lesser known function, providing a platform for sharing energy data about commercial buildings. A quarter of all commercial buildings in the United States use Energy Star to provide certification proof for local regulators. Two Canadian provinces use it as well. Unfortunately, EPA budget cuts appear ready to kill what is a very useful program. I spoke with Leia de Guzman, the co-founder of Cambio, a San Francisco-based company that has stepped up to provide a free platform for the data. Welcome to the interview, Leia.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Well, this is kind of a funky, behind the scenes kind of story for us. The Energy Star portfolio manager is not something that, 99.99% of people know about, right? So maybe we could start there. What is the portfolio manager?
Yeah, it's a great question because at first thought, when you think about Energy Star, you think about the little blue label on your appliances. And 90% of American households recognize Energy Star and its brand as precisely that. But this isn't just about slapping a label on washing machines. We're also talking about critical infrastructure in the United States that drives $14 billion of energy cost savings. And so the lesser known information about Energy Star is that Energy Star also slaps a rating on commercial buildings. And so
I
Energy Star's platform actually is the means by which utility data flows in the United States between utilities, landlords, and government.
ah, Gotcha. And about 25% of all commercial buildings are in the database, right?
Correct. 330,000 buildings in America are benchmarked on the Energy Star platform.
So what happens is users enter the 12 months of utility data, basic building details. It's all there, and then the system can decide whether or not that building deserves an Energy Star, the little blue label or not. Correct?
Something like that. Yeah, it's a little bit like the appliances, but make it about buildings. So the utility provider exports their data into Energy Star Portfolio Manager. The landlord then receives it. The landlord can then use the data in Energy Star to push data to, say, the state of California, who has regulation passed where the landlord must report their building's performance on an annual basis. So you can see how these three stakeholders are tightly interlinked by Energy Star Portfolio Manager.
And the important thing here is because I wasn't aware that states, provinces, or municipalities actually required this, but in fact they do. And if your building, if this data becomes unavailable, and we should point out that the EPA is discontinuing the tool, I understand. And, there's cutbacks at the EPA because of the new administration. So if this tool is no longer available, the data is no longer available, highly inconvenient to a lot of businesses.
Highly inconvenient mass disruption to how commercial landlords do their businesses. And let me kind of dig into that in a little more detail. So there are two problems here: transparency and actionability. On the transparency side, like I said, utility exports the data to landlord sends it to state of California, city of New York. There are 48 governments in the United States that rely on this for the regulation, and actually two Canadian provinces, Ontario and BC as well. And so you take this away, and suddenly landlords can no longer comply with state and municipal regulation or provincial regulation in Canada. And the entire means for data transparency is eradicated. The second problem is actionability. We say this all the time at Cambio: what doesn't get measured doesn't get done. Energy Star last year, like we said, helped 330,000 buildings, 1 in 4 buildings in the United States, get benchmarked. And if you don't understand the performance of a building, then you cannot improve it. Why do commercial landlords care about improving it? Well, it drives energy efficiency, which is utility cost savings, which is value and returns for a commercial fund. That is why landlords are so motivated to have this. Also, because many landlords also have these climate targets that they're looking to achieve in order to comply with regulation and what their stakeholders also care about. So, overall, you cannot action a retrofit on a building if you don't have this utility information.
I'm a little puzzled, primarily because I'm Canadian and I don't understand how the current administration arrives at many of its decisions. But this seems to be a platform that runs pretty much unattended. It probably doesn't take a lot of financial resources to keep it up to date and running the way it should. It provides a lot of value, by the sounds of it, to commercial building owners and state regulators who are worried about this. Why in the world would, like, what's the justification that the EPA has provided for axing this program?
Uh, you know, we cannot predict or understand what will happen. We cannot predict or understand what the rationale is behind this because it is, like I said, critical infrastructure for all of the United States to do benchmarking and comply with state and municipal regulation. All we can do, I think, at this point in time for us at Cambio is we have stepped in to provide a free backup alternative. We want to support commercial landlords, utilities, and municipal and state governments to provide this uninterrupted transparency to utility data. And so that's why we launched Cambio Vault to help with that.
So it essentially, the platform that you're providing replicates the one that the EPA had, and so it's fairly seamless for the companies, all the parties that use it.
In a few clicks and within 24 hours, we can back up landlord's commercial portfolio onto Cambio Vault. And that is what we've offered to the market for free. And a bit of context is, Cambio is a tool to recommend retrofits using AI. And so integrations with Energy Star were an important part of how we received some of that information. And when this news came out, there was a New York Times article last week talking about the potential defunding of the EPA's program. Stephanie, my co-founder, and I looked at each other and thought, hey, we already have this technology built. Why not offer it to the market for free?
Now, let's do a little plug for your business and tell our audience what it is that you do.
Yeah, we at Cambio are AI-based software to automate commercial real estate operations. Specifically, we help landlords drive financial return across hundreds or thousands of buildings at once. We ingest building data via large language models and AI to optimize their global retrofit strategy.
Well, isn't that interesting? So give us an insight into, in your niche of the market, how AI drives higher productivity and value both for your company, but also for the customers.
100%. So I am a former commercial real estate investor for nearly a decade and operator. And so let's think about how legacy commercial real estate has typically made decisions. We use PDF, spreadsheets, and emails to do all of our decision making. And so, yes, you can use PDFs and spreadsheets to make a decision on one building. But at the fund I used to work at, we had thousands of buildings around the world. And so suddenly, the decision on how you retrofit different buildings across 1,000+ buildings is a data problem and one that can be solved with data science and AI. And so imagine, rather than a human building engineer assessing one building manually and producing a retrofit assessment on a building, like upgrade your boiler to this other type of boiler that's more energy efficient. Rather, we can deploy a model that thinks like a building engineer on 1,000 buildings all at once.
Wow. Okay, I get it now. So instead of doing one-offs, you do a whole database, and the AI does it for you, and that's I can see where the savings come in and where the benefits are immediately. Well, look, Leah, thank you very much for this. This is fascinating. It's a little peek behind the curtain of how an industry works and how the role of data and how there's an intersection between energy and other sectors that's important for us to consider. It's not just all about power generation or oil and gas or anything. There's all these little other stories out there which are quite fascinating. So thank you very much for this.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, Markham, for having me.